I've been hiking solo for years, long enough that leaving the main trails feels natural to me. I know how to read terrain, follow my instincts, and keep myself calm when things don't go as planned. But last October, I pushed that confidence too far. I drove to the Monongahela National Forest in West Virginia for a long weekend alone, wanting isolation and quiet. The weather was perfect, mid-50s, overcast, and still, the kind of day where sound travels strangely far. I left the main trail early, heading into a quieter stretch of forest where the trees grew closer together and the ground felt untouched. The deeper I went, the more I felt that familiar excitement of being alone in real wilderness. No voices, no distant cars, no signs of anyone for miles. Just the crunch of leaves under my boots and the constant hum of the forest breathing around me. I had no idea how quickly that peace would collapse. For hours into the hike, I reached a gorge, maybe 30 or 40 feet deep. Not deadly, but dangerous enough that a fall would break more than your pride. At the bottom, a narrow creek trickled over smooth stones. Stretching across the gap was a massive fallen oak, thick enough to use as a bridge. The bark was worn smooth, the surface flattened from time and weather. I examined it carefully, pushing my foot down to test its strength. Solid. I crossed slowly, arms out for balance, breath steady, heart pounding just enough to remind me I was alive. When I reached the other side, the thrill hit me. That quiet rush you get from doing something risky but controlled. I smiled, feeling proud of myself, until I heard something, heavy, rhythmic, deliberate. A single thunk, then another, then another. I turned toward the sound, expecting maybe a woodpecker or a falling branch. But instead, standing on the opposite bank was a man, and he was holding a full-size axe. He looked like he was in his late 50s, maybe early 60s. His jacket was dirty, torn in places, and his jeans looked stiff from mud. He had a long, scraggly beard that hid most of his neck, and his hair was wild, sticking out from beneath a stained cap. He didn't acknowledge me at all. Instead, he stepped directly toward the fallen oak and swung the axe into it. Hard. The sound cracked through the gorge like gunfire. I shouted across to him, telling him to stop, asking what he was doing. No response. Not even a glance. He kept swinging, each hit deeper and more purposeful. That's when I realized what he was doing. He wasn't cutting firewood. He was trying to strand me on the other side. When the log shifted slightly under one of the blows, my stomach dropped. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was deliberate. And he didn't care that I could see every second of it happening. I yelled louder, angry now, throwing whatever words came to mind just to get him to react. He finally stopped mid-swing. For a brief moment, the woods felt silent, like everything was holding its breath. He set the axe down gently, then stepped closer to the edge of the gorge. When he lifted his face fully into view, I felt a chill. His eyes were sunken, ringed with something darker than bruises. His skin looked gray, almost sickly, but his expression was calm. Too calm. He leaned forward slightly and said, in a voice so casual it made my stomach turn, "I know these woods a lot better than you do." No threat, no anger, just certainty. We stared at each other for several long seconds, neither of us moving. Then he picked up the axe, turned his back, and walked casually into the deeper forest. Watching him disappear felt like watching a door close behind Predator. I knew I needed to leave, and fast. Crossing back was an option. The tree was splintered, cracked along the underside where the axe had hit it. Too weak to trust with my weight. My phone had zero service. The sun was edging lower, and shadows stretched long across the forest floor. I decided to follow the gorge downstream, hoping I'd find another way across or at least a safer path out. But the farther I walked, the worse things became. The gorge grew deeper. The opposite bank rose higher. The terrain twisted into jagged rock faces and thick underbrush. I kept glancing back, half expecting to see that man stalking behind me. The entire forest felt wrong now. The air felt heavier. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was watchful. The longer I walked, the more I felt like I'd stepped into someone else's territory. And whoever lived here did not tolerate strangers. I tried to convince myself I was overthinking it, but that instinctive fear kept crawling higher in my chest. Then, in the distance, I saw something that made my stomach drop. A clearing. Normally, that would have been a relief. A clearing meant people. A campsite. Help. But even from far away, something about it looked off. The trees surrounding it were carved. Deep gouges forming symbols I didn't recognize. Not initials. Not dates. These were patterns. Intentional. Precise. As I stepped closer, I saw objects scattered around the ground. Rusted tools, old cloth strips tied to branches, and what looked like bones arranged in spiral patterns. In the center sat a fire pit, but it wasn't a normal ring of stones. The stones were stacked into uneven towers, leaning but perfectly balanced. Structures, shrines, whatever this was, it wasn't a casual campsite. It was a place someone or several people had built with purpose. I backed away instantly. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Every part of my body screamed to leave. That clearing didn't just feel wrong. It felt claimed. I turned back toward the gorge, moving quickly but trying not to panic. The forest felt unnaturally quiet. No birds. No insects. No wind. Just my footsteps and something else. Soft steps behind me. Faint. Slow. Matching my movement. I stopped. They stopped. I began walking again. The steps continued. I whipped around fast, trying to catch whatever was there, but saw nothing. The trees stood motionless, the shadows long and empty. I told myself it had to be an animal, but I knew better. Deer don't follow in perfect rhythm. Predators don't freeze when you freeze. Something or someone was tracking me. The air felt colder, thicker. I sped up, my breath quickening, trying to stay calm but failing miserably. Whatever was out, there wasn't trying to hide anymore. The next time I looked back, I finally saw it. A figure ducked behind a tree. Human, not 50 yards behind me. Then another figure farther to the left. Another on the right. They weren't walking randomly. They were spreading out, forming a wide arc behind me, closing in at the same slow pace. Panic hit me so hard I felt dizzy. I didn't wait for them to step into view completely. I sprinted. Branches whipped against my face. The ground sloped downward dangerously. Behind me, the forest erupted. Footsteps pounded the dirt. Heavy, fast. Something screamed, a raw, guttural sound that didn't sound human. I didn't look back. My only focus was forward, feet slamming the earth, lungs burning. The gorge was still beside me, a long drop that I could barely see through the trees. Every instinct I had was screaming that if they caught me, I wasn't just getting robbed. I wasn't coming out of these woods alive. Just when my legs began to fail, I saw it. Another fallen log bridging the gorge. Much thinner, much less stable. The bark was missing in places. Moss clung to the surface. It looked like one misstep would snap it. But behind me, the footsteps were getting louder, angrier. I didn't have a choice. I climbed onto the log and started across. The wood creaked dangerously beneath me. Halfway through, a chunk broke away, falling into the ravine. I nearly slipped. Somehow, I made it across and jumped onto solid ground. My legs nearly gave out. When I turned, 3 figures stood at the edge of the opposite bank. Dirty, expressionless, their clothes torn and stained. They looked eerily similar to the Axeman. Same build, same hollow eyes. One stepped forward, touched the log with his foot, then shook his head slowly, almost disappointed. Then he pointed directly at me. His voice was low, steady and disturbingly calm. "Get out of here. You got lucky today." No shouting, no anger, just certainty, like he already knew how everything should have ended. I didn't respond. I turned and ran again, fueled by pure adrenaline and exhaustion. The forest behind me fell silent instantly, as if they'd simply vanished. I ran until my lungs felt like they were tearing open. I had no idea where I was going, only that I needed distance. Somehow, through instinct or blind luck, I eventually stumbled onto a familiar trail. When the parking lot finally appeared through the trees, I nearly collapsed from relief. I threw myself into my car, locked the doors, and drove without stopping, shaking the entire way home. I didn't go to the police. I couldn't explain what I saw without sounding insane. A stranger with an axe who tried to trap me. A clearing filled with symbols and bones. A group of silent figures stalking me through the forest. Who would believe any of that? And even if someone did, what would they do? Search an entire national forest for 3 men who clearly knew how to vanish? The more I thought about it, the more I realized they'd probably been doing this a long time. The Axeman's confidence, the symbols, the coordination, none of that was random. They knew those woods better than anyone, and I had wandered directly into whatever territory they claimed. Surviving felt like an accident, like they had chosen to let me go, not because I escaped, but because, for some reason, I wasn't worth finishing. It's been nearly a year since it happened, and I still can't hike the way I used to. The forest feels different now. Shadows feel closer. Silence feels heavier. Every time I hear leaves crunch behind me, my body reacts before my brain does. I think about that clearing often. The carved symbols, the bone arrangements, the stone towers. I wonder what rituals took place there. I wonder how many others wandered close without realizing it. But the thing that haunts me most is the Axeman's voice, calm and confident, telling me he knew those woods better than I did, as if he already knew exactly where I would run, exactly how the chase would play out, and exactly how close I came in never leaving. I don't know what those people were, or what they wanted. All I know is that I survived by inches, and when the forest goes quiet, I still feel like something out there remembers me,